Hey folks, this is Seth Mayo, Curator of Astronomy for the Lohmann Planetarium, and I'm back with you for another weekly edition of our Sky Tonight. And for this week we're covering August 17th through August 23rd. And for this episode we're going to talk just some of the highlights of our sky this week. We're going to talk again about the Perseid meteor shower. You might see a few stray Perseids at this time of the year. And we're going to talk about Mars and something called the Mars hoax. So let's get right to it. Alright, so looking towards the west, we can expect the sun to set in this area of the sky just after 8 o'clock. And at the beginning of this week, as we set the sun here, we'll notice not too much going on above the western horizon, for the exception of a couple bright stars, which we've already mentioned in the past. And those stars, which I'll talk about again, are the stars Arcturus, a red supergiant star, and getting kind of low in the sky just above the west-southwestern area is this star Spica, a very famous binary star system. And we can start to say farewell to Spica. It is getting very, very low and going to set soon in this part of the sky. But if you do wait a little bit later in the week, preferably towards the weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, then you'll have a nice viewing, hopefully, of our crescent moon. And if I zoom in a little bit, we'll see this just a little bit better. So this is by Friday, August 21st. You'll have the very thin crescent moon, and maybe even get something called Earth shine, which we've also mentioned before. And if you wait till Saturday, it'll be pretty close to the star Spica, so we can kind of call that a conjunction. And then on Sunday, at the end of this week, we'll have even more of a crescent moon, a waxing moon, since you're seeing more and more of the side we normally see being lit by the sun. So what I really like about this time of the year here in mid to late August are that the summer constellations and stars are really high up and easy to spot in the sky. So if you look directly south in the 9 o'clock hour this week, you'll find Scorpius, and almost directly south here you'll find the stinger of Scorpius that I'm tracing out here. It looks like a little triangle that you may have noticed, and so we can turn on Scorpius here. So Scorpius is still looking great. Sagittarius right next to Scorpius's tail, which is the half man, half horse, is prominently rising in the southeast along with the planets Jupiter and Saturn. And really high up, almost straight up at this time of year once it's dark out, are the three stars of the summer triangle that we see here. Those three stars that make up this very, very large, very simple shape in our sky. So Deneb, Altair, and Vega is pretty much at the zenith. And I can turn on the constellations that these three stars are a part of. So really nice to see these summer objects so easy to spot. Looking towards the northeast, we can talk again about the Perseid meteor shower. And this meteor shower actually peaked last week, as I mentioned in the previous episode. The peak was around the 12th and the 13th. And even though the peak happened last week, this meteor shower runs from July 17th through August 24th. So we still have a chance to see a stray Perseid meteor or two. And when I talk about this meteor shower, I always like to start with the constellation called Cassiopeia. Right here, it looks kind of like a letter W or a letter M, depending on how you turn your head. So we'll turn on Cassiopeia. She was a queen from Greek mythology. And underneath her in the northeast, you'll find some stars here that form the warrior, the mighty warrior, Perseus. If you have a lot of imagination, you can imagine a person standing here. Actually, a person that is holding Medusa's head, since Perseus slayed Medusa from Greek mythology. And inside the Perseus constellation, technically, is the radiant point of this meteor shower. And that's why we call it the Perseid meteor shower, because it's coming out of the Perseus constellation. I can turn on the radiant, which is near the head of Perseus. So at this time of year, we're always traveling through the debris trail of Comet Swift-Tuttle. So we're getting the little comet debris bits that are burning up in our atmosphere at about 130,000 miles per hour. And they seem to be radiating from this point, not coming straight from this point, but you can trace most of the meteors that are happening at this time of year towards this area near Perseid, and it usually is best to see these meteors from about midnight until the pre-dawn hours before sunrise in the early morning. So that's usually how meteor showers work or look best. So again, even though this is not the peak of the shower, we do have a chance to see this if you're out at the right time. Even before midnight, you might see a stray Perseid meteor or two. So it is worth looking up and trying to wait for one of these meteors, for one of the best meteor showers you can see all year. Now, the reason why I want to talk about Mars in this episode is because of something called the Mars hoax. And if you've never heard of the Mars hoax, it states that Mars will look as big and bright as the full moon. And this year, it's been said that it would happen on the 27th of this month. And I'm going to tell you right away that is entirely not true. Mars will never be as big and as bright as the full moon, and I'll explain why later on. But this hoax has kind of popped up every couple of years since about the year 2003. And the reason for that is because in 2003, Mars was at its closest approach to us in about 60,000 years. It was at something called opposition. And even then, it was not anywhere near the size of the full moon. So let's talk about Mars opposition and how that works. So this is our bird's eye view of the inner solar system provided by our planetarium software we call UniView. You notice the sun in the middle and the orbits of the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and I've labeled Earth and Mars since we're talking about these two planets. And this is set for the date now. So right now Mars and Earth are not at their closest approach. But let's speed up time to October 13th. That is the official date of our closest approach to the red planet. So we're going to skip ahead to that date quite quickly here. You'll see it move and speed up very fast. Very nice. And this is what we call opposition. And the way that works is that Mars is opposite of the sun in our sky. And when that occurs, we're the closest we can get to Mars, at least at that time. If Mars was opposite of us on the other side of the solar system, we'd be farthest away from Mars and we wouldn't even see it because the sun's glare would be blocking our view. But since Mars is on the same side as we are on the solar system and it's opposite of the sun, that is our closest approach. And again, that occurs on October 13th of this year. Now, even at this closest approach, Mars is still about 38.8 million miles away. And that is very close for Mars. But if you compare that to the moon on average is about 238,000 miles away. And at that distance, the moon covers about a half a degree in the sky. That's its angular diameter. The sun is about the same. The sun is about half a degree. So the moon and the sun are the two largest natural objects you can see in our sky. So for Mars, at 38.8 million miles away, it covers about 22.4 arcseconds as seen from Earth. That's its angular diameter. 1 arcsecond is 1/3600th of a degree. And if you compare that to the moon, 22.4 arcseconds is only 1.2% the moon's diameter, and that's a full moon. So it's very, very tiny. Even when it's brightest and biggest, it's still only just over 1% the size of a full moon. So there's a big difference. So you may be wondering, what did Mars look like in 2003 when it was closest to us in the past 60,000 years? Well, we can reverse the clock here in UniView and go back in time. So let's try that out and go really fast. Here we go. Going back in time, many orbits back, and putting Mars at opposition again relative to Earth in late August of 2003. And at this point, Mars was only about 34.6 million miles away. So about 4 million miles closer than the opposition that occurs this October. So that is very close for Mars. It covered at that time about 25.1 arcseconds, which corresponds to about 1.35% the width of our full moon. So even though that was an extremely bright and large Mars, it was still only 1.35% the size of the moon. Again, the difference is still very large. And our orbits are very stable. They're the way they are for a very long time, and so they're not going to be bumping around, moving around, and so Mars will really only get that big and bright in our sky. The next time that it's as close to us, like in 2003, is in 2287. So we have some time there. And the closest that it can get to us that we think is possible for Mars is in the year 25,695. And at that point, it will be 26.04 arcseconds, which would be about 1.4% the moon's diameter. So still extremely small compared to our full moon. And that's going all the way to the year 25,695 AD. So that gives you an idea of how extreme you can go, and you can never ever get to the size of a full moon. So we think that original Mars hoax came from 2003 in late August of that year, when people got really excited about the size of Mars, which is understandable. People really were getting pumped up about what Mars would look like, and it was bright, but at that time only 1.35% the size of the moon's diameter. And for this one coming up in October, it will be 1.2% the moon's diameter. And that's not even this August when the opposition is occurring. That is in October instead. So this is just an internet rumor that's been circulating for a very long time. It just is holding on to dear life and just circulating around. So now that you know about it, you can tell other people about it and see if we can eventually stop this Mars hoax. Who knows? We'll see. And now we're back in Stellarium again, looking at Mars as you would see it in our sky, rising in the east a little bit later right now for this week. So be prepared for telling other people about this Mars hoax, and that Mars will never be as big as the full moon, but that doesn't diminish the appearance of Mars. Mars is a spectacular planet to look at. You'll definitely see its amber, kind of reddish color to it from its red, rusty surface, the iron oxide on the surface. And the Mars views are going to get really good when the Perseverance rover gets closer to it in the beginning of next year. And that's a spacecraft actually approaching Mars close up, taking pictures. So we expect it to look fabulous as the Perseverance rover eventually makes it to the surface, slated for landing on Mars in February. I think it's February 18th of next year, 2021. So there's many ways to celebrate Mars, just not Mars being the size of a full moon, but just wait. Every night it's getting a little bit brighter, a little higher in the sky, and you can see a little earlier. So stay tuned for what Mars is going to do soon, and for the Mars opposition on October 13th of this year. So this is where I'm going to end this night sky tour for this week. I hope you get a chance to get outside and look at all these wonderful things, especially Mars, maybe a stray Perseid meteor or two. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Happy stargazing and happy Mars gazing.